anticlimax after David and Yale and Tony. but I'll try and say something that's interesting. So this doxing question, maybe I'll start with that. Perhaps can reflect on what Asa was saying and what Sarah was saying and what Yale was saying about the increasing repression that we're seeing in our country. I think that's a fair statement to make, don't you? Yeah. And if we reflect on something that is as old as the perhaps 1936 speech made in the United Nations, that freedom is indivisible, and human rights likewise are indivisible. And if we allow the Palestinians or any people to be crushed, to be subject to genocide, to be wiped off the face of the earth, are we so arrogant as to imagine that those who commit those crimes against the Palestinians will not feel free to roll out similar crimes against us? I'm a long-term campaigner against apartheid. My father was Indian, Harpal Brar. He came to this country in 1962. He came from a wealthy, landed family, but found racism here, found colonialism, and changed his life. Gave up all of that and became what some of you would consider to be a mad, ranting, raving, Maoist communist. He became an advocate for his community and he became a revolutionary. And as an activist in the Indian Workers Association, he not only campaigned against racism in our country, which was rife, it was rife even when I grew up. When I grew up in Hemel Hempstead in the 1970s, I didn't know any other culture. I was a British boy. But it was all right to be taken out and beaten for being a Paki and for being a nigger, right? That was the reality of the society I grew up in. That's very different to how it is now. And I know I look English. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm from here. Where are you from? I'm from here. The name was enough. But that racism doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from a colonial history and a colonial past. And it's that colonial history and colonial past that needs an ideology to go with it, to justify it. That ideology is racism. And you can look at the speeches of people who come out of the American army when they fought, in Iraq. They're very powerful speeches. You say, a weapon doesn't fire itself. Doesn't matter how much sophistication and technology you have, you can't get the army of the US to fire it against the people of Iraq without one secret ingredient, and that was the racism that they taught us towards those people. And it's the wealth, it's the incredible wealth of the Middle East, which is the ongoing justification for these crimes. A lot of people are asking, why are these Zionists allowed to carry on? Why is Keir Starmer a Zionist? Why is Joe Biden a Zionist? I wish we could give Joe Biden a history lesson. Maybe he can't take it on right now. But he's got that very famous quote where he says, you know what, I love Israel, I'm a Zionist. If Israel didn't exist, we'd have to invent it. Well, newsflash, we did invent it. It didn't exist. And it was the British who did it. They did it precisely to steal the wealth of the Middle East. And yes, absolutely what Yale said is right. Yale is inspirational to see you and your stand, unassailable stand, as someone brought up in Israel who is unafraid to criticize the crimes and call them what they are. We must never allow ourselves to be browbeaten and intimidated. Criticizing crimes, criticizing genocide, criticizing collective punishment, criticizing starvation, criticizing massacre of children, criticizing using weapons of mass destruction against a civilian population, the densest civilian population on earth, which is there precisely because of past crimes and past genocides and past ethnic cleansing. We can never be intimidated into stopping our criticism and calling it out for what it is. It is fascism. It is fascism. Israel is a fascist. I got in trouble for selling this book. And some of you may consider this to be provocative. And I guess there's an extent to which the image is supposed to be provocative. Because if we're not provoked by the crime of genocide, then what the bloody hell are we supposed to be provoked by? It is just what it looks like. Actually, it turns out to be a symbol from the Raelians, who are a strange religious cult. But it's meant to be a comparison both between the crimes and the actions and the deeds of the fascist ideology of the Nazi Germans, and the crimes and the genocide and the foul deeds, including annexation of foreign lands, expansionism, ethnic cleansing, Lebensraum, apartheid. All of these are terms which apply equally to the fascist state, the colonial entity, the Zionist colonial settler state that is Israel. And for that reason, it's a just comparison. Not only that, historically, the two collaborated in the formation of Israel because they shared certain common goals. The Nazis, of course, thought the Germans were a master race and they wanted to get rid of Jews. But the Jews, the German Zionist organization, also wanted to display, they thought they could never integrate into society. That was their ideology. They had an ultra-nationalism and Jewish supremacism, and they wanted Jews to leave Germany and go to Palestine. They cooperated in a historic agreement called the Havara. They minted a coin. Wilhelm Eichmann went to Jerusalem. These are historic facts. I'm not making them up. I'm not anti-Semitic. I believe in the equality of all people. Precisely because the stock in trade of Israel has been to conflate criticism of Israel with criticism of Judaism. They're trying to make it illegal, beyond the pale. The IHRA definition of anti-Semitism is precisely designed to indemnify Israel of criticism of its crimes. But that now has been rolled out with the attack on Corbyn, which was so vehement in defeating the movement that many of you were involved in. I wasn't. I've never been a supporter of Labour Party, and the reasons I won't go into here. But you guys have. And you guys very much believed, many of you, that you could bring Corbyn. You could bring Corbyn in and you could harness the British state and change the world. And I know that you sincerely want that to be the case. I wish that were the case. I think what we can learn from the Corbyn movement is that's not the case. That actually the collaboration of the British establishment predates even the Labour Party, right? The British establishment formed Israel. It's wedded to Israel precisely because its ongoing profit is still dependent. I'm going to end with this one quote. This one quote is from someone, is a British trade unionist called Trevor Dunning, I believe, T.J. Dunning. And it was quoted by Marx. And it just have a little think about this. Capital is said by a quarterly review to fly, turbulence and strife. Capital, you know, money. The capitalists, bankers. And to be timid, which is very true. But this is very incompletely stating the question. Capital eschews no profit, or very small profit, just as nature was formerly said to abhor a vacuum. But with adequate profit, capital is bold. A certain 10% will ensure its employment anywhere. 20% certain will produce eagerness. 50% positive audacity. 100% will make it ready to trample on all human laws. 300%, and there's not a crime at which it will scruple, nor a risk it will not run, even to the chance of its owner being hanged. If turbulence and strife will bring profit, it will freely encourage both smuggling and the slave trade have amply proved all that is here stated. I would put it to you that when we look at the genocidal crimes of Israel, when we say why does the British capitalists, why do the American capitalists, why do our politicians, Labour, Tory, Liberal, why do they all stand with the genocide? We have to look a little bit deeper. It's the people who control the oil fields, the armaments manufacturers, massive capitalist corporations and banks. These are the people who operate our politicians. You know, yes, Zionists are there. They are absolutely a part of that machine. But Israel is a colony of the US and Britain. It's from here that the genocide really originates. We must never lose sight of that. And for that reason, our ruling class are the perpetrators of the genocide. They are the ones who come to your house, Sarah, come to your house, Asa, come to my house, arrest me at demonstrations, and now are coming for my registration at the GMC. They wish to prevent me from practicing medicine after 25 years of training and an unblemished record. They wish to stop me from practicing medicine, and they're pursuing a case against me to strike me off because there's no criminal case to answer. But you know, actually, the registration law, the so-called regulatory law around the professions, around your work, is a very potent crime, which doesn't really need the same level of scrutiny and tests. So you've broken no law, but you can have no economic existence. This is the reality. We're told that the infringement of human rights is visited upon Nigel Farage when he struck off from a bank at Coutts. The reality is it's you that is being targeted by the diminution of human rights in this country. So I don't want you to applaud me, I want you to applaud each and every one of you for standing with Palestine. You're quite right, the Palestinians are the ones who are really at the sharp end of struggle through no fault of their own. They found themselves at the cutting edge of the struggle against imperialism. But I salute every one of you who didn't need to put yourself in harm's way, but have stood up for what is right, and I salute you all. Please give yourself a very big